We are back for season 3 of the Fantasy Buzz podcast. You know, if I had the Welcome Back Cotter theme, I would be playing that right now. I don't have it.
Welcome back.
There you go. All right. Thanks, Keith. Get that going. Guys, we are set for an incredible season. So much happened in the offseason. We have no choice but to be excited about the coming season, even though we have, and I calculated this today, we have 108 days until the first game. So before that, we're going to try to give you your football fix here at the Fantasy Buzz podcast. And with me, as always, returning again, we have Cyclop. We've got 2020 guys. Say hello.
Hello, all. And man, I was so excited for our first show back until you said 108 days. It just made it feel like so long. I feel like all this time in between the end of the season and the beginning of the season, you know, it's like what do you do? It's like you're a bear, like you go into hibernation. But
I know, what's that in dog years?
So guys, I mean, it's been an incredible offseason, right? I mean, so many things have happened. If there's one thing that you could take away without necessarily getting into the topic that we're going to go through tonight, and if you want to talk about receivers, we're going to do that later. But if there's one takeaway during this offseason, what would that be?
I would say expect the unexpected. I have never seen this many marquee quarterbacks that were connected to a team depart in this kind of quantity ever in my history of watching football. So just some things you and some wide receivers as well, some huge wide receivers, like 2 of the top 3 wide receivers. So expect the unexpected and be prepared. You know,
what about
for the
you,
team
Brad?
that the players that you grew up with.
What do you see, Brad? What's your big one takeaway here?
My big takeaway from this offseason is insanity. It is I think so much of it is the salary cap and just players kind of controlling what they want now. But it's just insanity to have this many wide receivers change teams, not just, an average, not Jones.
Yeah, you're talking the cream of the crop
average
here.
wide receiver. You're talking 10 top receivers, I think, is what we counted.
There was this week at the end of March where it was like bang, 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 Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill. I mean, one after another, and I couldn't get enough. I mean, I was on Twitter like for 24 hours a day trying to get the insights and seeing what's about to happen. I mean, so that's just a preview. We've already seen the offseason. There's still, by the way, a lot of free agents left that haven't been signed yet that will once teams get into mini camps. We're going to start seeing deficiencies. People are going to sign these free agents, and we're going to talk about them here. We're going to talk about which ones are fantasy relevant. And all through the summer, we're going to get you prepared. So when it comes time for your draft, you are going to determine whether or not these free agents are worth a pickup. And then later on in the summer, that's when we'll start giving you our rankings. We'll talk about each team
and not just
each player.
And not just what wide receivers are, where they're going to rank and all this, but it changes all the quarterbacks as well. A complete quarterback shuffle.
Right.
As far as that.
And that changes defenses, that changes wide receivers, running backs. I mean, everything is affected by that.
Everything.
Okay, so let's do this. This is our new interface. We were on StreamYard before. We're now on Restream. It gives us the ability to have this chat overlay. When new comments come in, we're going to jump on them and show them. It doesn't look – I don't know if it happens. Tonight is going to be a trial night. And Travis, we appreciate it. I think right off the bat, one of our best listeners from last year, season 3. Let's do it. I agree, Travis. Thank you for your listenership. And of course, there's our number one fan, Kenneth. Hey guys, Kenneth, we haven't worked out the phone thing yet, but we're going to, and hopefully when we do, we'll be able to get a call in. Of course, Travis says you can't believe Adams left us. I guess Travis is telling me he's a Green Bay fan.
We knew that.
And we're going to talk about this, Travis, right? It's not just Adams, right? Adams isn't the only one that left Green Bay, and I'm curious how you feel about that team and what's going to happen with MVS going, and then Sammy Watkins coming in. So we'll get into that later on in the evening. So we appreciate the comments all throughout the show. If you have any questions, you have any comments, go ahead and send it to us. We will direct it immediately. Hopefully that little space that you see there. Oh, here we go. The comments are now okay. So this does work. As the comments come in, you're going to see them start scrolling. We have a Go Browns.
I saw that.
We don't know what's going to happen with the Browns, guys.
Right.
We don't know whether or not Watson's going to be suspended for a period of time, and then they're going to have to rely on Baker Mayfield, who they've completely isolated. And I mean, who knows?
Said he's not even going to show up to OTA.
Well, he's just a whiner.
He's told about what happened.
He is a whiner, but I don't blame him at this point based on the way that he was treated.
Whatever. He isolated himself. No, I'm sorry. You're making $15 million a year. You know what? Get over it. I'm sorry.
But that's
you can say no, but this guy was
been like that since college.
20.
Probably.
Right. This was the first round. This was the first round draft pick. That's supposed to be the quarterback of this team.
Number 1 overall.
Yep, right. They give up the farm to get Watson, basically saying, we don't believe in you. I'd be pissed. Although here's the deal, though. You make the bed and you lie in it. And unfortunately, he shit the bed. He wasn't doing it.
But you know what? One of the things that made Baker, and the reason why they drafted him was because of that personality and the way he is. So it'll be interesting. Let's put it that way, to see what happens. More importantly, on a fantasy relevant side, they obviously have lost Jarvis Williams. We're going to talk about Jarvis Landry. We'll talk about that later on. Who's going to catch the ball? No OBJ, no Jarvis Landry. It's a completely different offense. They still have Chubb, they still have Hunt. The question's going to come later, not tonight, but we're going to talk about it later, is where do you rank someone like Chubb? And where do you rank someone like Hunt? And Chubb has been dropping down. He's been dropping down those rankings. But again, we're not going to get to that. Now, Kenneth does have a question of the night. He says, which QB is under the most pressure heading into the season? Would you say Tua is up there, guys?
This is easy. So easy. It's Tua. I mean, come on. This is the easiest question, Kenneth, you've ever asked. And as Dolphin fans, we know that, but just in general.
Or is he just a fill-in in Atlanta?
He's a fill-in. He's a fill-in.
Like, you don't think he can resurrect his career?
I mean, yeah, sure, but he's not under the kind of pressure that Tua's under, for sure.
I think 2020 has been frozen like Walt Disney's head. He is not he's not moving, but it's good to know that if anything happens to him, we've preserved him for the rest of his life. Hopefully he'll fix whatever is there and he'll come back to life. In the meantime, I'm going to take him off here. There we go.
Yeah, Mariota he's not under any pressure this year in Atlanta. They don't have a receiver there. I mean, first of all, but no. I mean, and Kenneth is saying, what about Jimmy G in San Francisco? No, they don't even know if he's going to be the starter. Don't even know if
it's going to be Trey Lance. I think if anybody's under pressure, it's going to be Trey Lance to solidify that number 1 spot. But Tua's in this position where they've spent so much money on wide receivers, on running backs, on an offensive line. If he can't get it together, and I keep saying if he can't get it together, he actually did an incredible job based upon the fact that they had the 32nd ranked offensive line and he had the least amount of time to throw of any other quarterback in the league. And he still put up numbers that were around the halfway mark in the NFL. It looks like we possibly have Keith back, or at least part of his back.
And he's back.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. My power strip just kind of flipped on me and I lost all power on everything on my computer. So I'm doing this off my iPad.
Well,
it happens.
It happens.
Yes.
And then we have a Gronk question, Travis. I wonder if Gronk is going to go back to Tampa or not. That's a good question.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if he does come back, it'll probably be after training camp, so he doesn't have to go through all of that.
He's coming back. I bank on that for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So, like I said, tonight we're going to jump into wide receivers. We're going to talk about which wide receivers are fantasy relevant. But there's a new segment, and I didn't talk to you guys about this before. It's something I want to bring up, and I know we're late to the table with regard to. I swear to God, I'm getting seasick watching 2020 here.
No, I know. I'm trying to fix it. I'm adjusting.
Okay. And we always hear about the Mount Rushmore of different things, right? So I kind of want to bring that into the show where each week one of us will bring up a topic. We'll try to come up with a Mount Rushmore, our top 5, not necessarily in any order, of something not football related, right? So the thing I want to do tonight, and I'm going to bring it up now so that way we can talk about it throughout the show, not just right now, and of course get comments from our listeners, but I want to talk about the Mount Rushmore. Since summer, right? Summer's coming. A lot of kids are going to be outside. We're going to hear ice cream trucks. I want to know the Mount Rushmore of ice cream truck treats. Right? Like my favorite, let me just tell you my favorite that is going on my Mount Rushmore are the I can't believe I just forgot the name of it. It's the icy with the gumball on the bottom of it.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But I forgot the name of that. Oh, Mount Rushmore breakfast cereal. That's good. That's one that we could definitely talk about another time.
The push pop.
The push pop.
Right.
Do you guys, do you have one? The orange push pops. You're right. That's a classic.
Well, I mean, the ice cream trucks in my neighborhood growing up were selling like dime bags. So,
No.
Oh, God.
That's another Mount Rushmore.
Yeah,
we won't have to talk about that one tonight.
Well, we're certainly get Bruno and Jeff as our listeners for that show.
Remember I think it was Jeff driving it.
It had
what was the one that 3-layered? It was like red, white, and blue.
That's Astropop. In fact, that's the one
Astropop.
that I think Robbie just recommended here.
Right.
He said, there he goes, Astropop. Yep.
Right.
Yeah. And so we've got Astropop.
Or like the crunch bar, like the crunch bars.
I loved the chocolate eclair. It was
the
like
chocolate eclairs. Those were incredible.
Love those. And they had strawberry shortcake, very similar to that. I'd oscillate between the two when I wasn't getting dime bags visiting Cyclop in his neighborhood.
So someone just said ice cream sandwiches.
Oh, yeah.
That's Kenneth. They're a classic, right? Like, you can't say no to ice cream sandwiches. They are definitely a classic. The thing is with ice cream sandwiches, though, when we were growing up, you could go to the store and buy ice cream sandwiches.
Right.
You couldn't go to the store and get, the astronaut. Now you can. Yeah.
Right.
Now you can. But I'm just saying, back then a lot of the treats that are on the truck you couldn't get in the store, and the only way to do it was to go to the pedophile ride and drive
the ice cream. Yeah.
Oh man.
Okay. All right, guys. So this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna jump into the topic of the night, which is free agent and trades with regard to wide receivers. Which wide receivers are fantasy relevant that were either picked up in free agency or by way of trade? And let me see, Travis, you think Jordan Addison is going to be a good wide receiver this year? The question, I don't know, to me, not necessarily is whether or not he's going to be good. I think the question is whether or not he's going to be fantasy relevant. And I don't necessarily see it being fantasy relevant.
Yeah. It's just a toss up there right now.
Do you think he is? I mean, we said that we're going to talk about rookies and where the rookies fall into play in another show. But since you asked the question, do you, Travis, I'm curious, do you think he's going to be fantasy relevant this year? I mean, I don't know.
He's in Green Bay, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We would pick up Brandon Williams from the Ravens.
Again,
Devontae Adams and Juju. All right, so they're just kind of
and we'll get into that. In fact, when we start talking about, so let's do this, right? I'm going to start off, guys, and I want to start off talking about Devontae Adams. Now, there's something that I showed Brad earlier, and it is something that could be taken any way you want to take it, but it's very interesting, and I don't know if you guys can really see that, but what this is telling us is it's looking at all of the free agent wide receiver pickups from 2018 and what they did or what they did not do. But the bottom line of this graphic right here is that 32 wide receivers signed as free agents since 2018, and only 2 of them reached 1,000 yards, and none had more than 6 touchdowns. The average season for the free agent wide receiver, 41 receptions, 503 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And you know what? You could throw trades into this too.
Mm-hmm.
Because the NFL, guys, is not plug and play. You could say for the most part there are some people that are plug and play, but there's so much that goes into the wide receiver position, right? If you don't have the right quarterback, you don't have the right line, you don't have the right scheme, things could change on a dime. So the question is, and I'm going to start off talking about Davante Adams. The question is, are we going to see the Davante Adams that had Aaron Rodgers throwing to him? Are we going to see a different type of Davante Adams? Now, here's the bad news, right? Well, let's start the good news, because the good news is obvious. Since 2018, Davante Adams has finished in the top 5 of all wide receivers every year, right? We know that, which is why he was always either 1 or 2 wide receivers drafted in fantasy football.
The past few years, right?
Right. So there's the good news. We know he's got supreme talent. Here's the bad news. It's unlikely that Carr is going to actually target him as much as Rodgers targeted him, which was 31.6% of the time. Think about that for a second. 31.6% of the time that Aaron Rodgers dropped back to pass, it went to Davante Adams. He didn't necessarily catch them all, but almost 32% of them went to Davante Adams. And just as a reference, last year, Tyreek Hill, who had over 1,200 yards and 9 touchdowns, only had a 25% target share. Why?
Right. They've
got Kelsey, right? At the time, they had Nicole Hardman. They had Robinson. I mean, there are people that Mahomes could throw to. You didn't see a lot of that in Green Bay. But here's what we have with the Raiders. And Robbie will be the first one to tell you, right? They've also got Darren Waller. They've got Hunter Renfrow. Right? These are guys that are target share monsters in their own right. And to think that Davante Adams is going to come in and get 36% of those targets, I don't see it happening in Vegas. That's why, look, and he's still going to get his numbers. He's still going to be fantasy relevant. It's just, I think he's going to go from a wide receiver 1, or the first wide receiver that would normally be taken in fantasy football, to the 5th wide receiver taken in fantasy football. I think there's that much of a drop. I don't think he's first round worthy. I think he's late second round worthy. But it's something to keep an eye on.
I agree with you. Certain quarterbacks are kingmakers. And Derek Carr is not one of them. Aaron Rodgers is a kingmaker. He gave, like you said, he had the target share. If you look going back to the premier wide receivers that Carr had, and you could probably only really point back to Amari Cooper as a premier wide receiver. Ruggs was on his way, but he does have the premier tight end. So, and that's where the kingmaking is happening in Oakland, or excuse me, in Vegas, is with Darren Waller. So Adams is going to see a significant drop. He's going to have great numbers, but he's not working with Aaron Rodgers anymore, who is a kingmaker for wide receivers.
Yeah.
So do you agree though that he's still a wide, within the first 5, the top wide receivers in the league?
I don't have him. I do not have him top 5 right now. I probably have him top 10, just outside the top 10, because I just don't see him. He's got the talent, but not the target share or that kind of play with Derek Carr.
What do you think, Brad?
Yeah. So I actually heard today, I was listening to another show as I was driving for several hours today, and Hunter Renfrow was actually a trivia question. And it was, who is the AFC receiver who was the top 5 in the top 5 receiver, the number 5 for the second half. I think it was the second half of the season, or after week 9 last year.
Yeah, he was doing well.
And it was Hunter Renfrow. I mean, he was targeted. He was getting 10, 12, 13 catches a game. And, they weren't necessarily all long, real long ones and everything, but he was still getting that target. Now, obviously, Derek Carr is comfortable with him. And Darren Waller, he's comfortable with. Now, you throw Davante Adams in there, and all of a sudden you have a three-headed monster and a coaching staff that is coming from New England, right? So you throw that in there, and they like to go to running backs. They mix it up. I see Davante Adams. I think you're going to see a lot of people draft him just because the name. But if they dig deeper, you're going to see a lot. You're going to see him around, late second, mid third round as a wide receiver.
There's no way he's making mid third. There's no way.
No, that's not happening.
But
he's making mid third.
I see him going for about 85, 1,100, and about 8 touchdowns, because there's just too much sharing to go around.
Right.
Okay. All right, I can see that as a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
So let's do this, guys. We talked about what about Tyreek Hill, right? He was the other major trade that we saw during free agencies. What do you think is going to happen with Tyreek?
So here's some numbers for Tyreek. Okay, he's obviously going to Miami. We already talked about this. Tua's kind of on the hot seat right now, right? Mm-hmm. And you have Josh McDaniel, the guru, coming in to coach. There's a lot of positive things going on in Miami. They're picking up, seems like, a running back every other day, for the backfield.
Mike McDaniel, by the way.
What did I say?
Josh
McDaniel. Yes, Mike McDaniel. Sorry, Robbie typed Josh McDaniel. I said Josh. Yes, Mike McDaniel. Obviously they have Waddle, who Tua got a great connection with last year. They have Gesicki. Devontae Parker is not there anymore. He went to New England. In 2021, Tyreek Hill has 1,239 yards, 111 catches, and 15 touchdowns. Monster year. 2020, I might have these backwards. I'm not sure.
No, you're right. Those were his numbers last year.
Mm-hmm. Those were his numbers last year, right? So it was a lot of much shorter catches. It was
Mahomes had one of the lowest, yards per pass.
Right.
Yeah. For his
last
career.
year. Yeah. It was so Tyreek Hill had 11 yards per catch. The year before, he had almost 15 yards per catch, 9 touchdowns, and 12, about the same amount of yards, but on 87 catches. So a lot more things downfield, right? What we saw last year with Waddle was he was getting those, 3 to 12-yard catches and being able to do a lot of yak yards, right? That's what he does. Now, can they have 2 receivers do that? I don't know, right? You're kind of taking 2 very similar type guys and putting them in, and along with several other wide receivers that they've picked up in Miami. A couple interesting things. Now, I just happen to be looking at this. He's played 7 seasons. 3 times in those 7 seasons, he's had a long catch of 75 yards. 2 of those seasons,
he doesn't mean that the ball traveled 75 yards.
Right.
No. I'm just. These were just interesting numbers I saw. In 2 of those seasons, it was 79 yards. So, 5 out of his 7 seasons, he's got 279, 275. I thought that was interesting. The thing that I don't necessarily love about his stats, in the past 5 seasons, his 40-plus yard receptions has gone from 9, 8, 6, 5 to 3. So he's gone down every year in his long receptions. Okay, so I think they,
and I think that's more of what they were trying to do with the Kansas City offense. They started to go a little shorter because they were playing the 2 cover on their a lot of the defense picked up on that, and it hindered what they were doing. But I think were you done, by the way, Cyclop?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue that you're going to see with Hill is I don't think he's fallen off at all. I think he's still an NFL stud. Is the system that they're coming into? Mike McDaniel is a run offense oriented guru. He has this incredible outside zone blocking scheme, bought in 2 incredible pass catching backs in Mostert and Chase Edmonds, and now a bruiser with Sony Michel, and really beefed up that offensive line. Obviously, they're going to throw the ball, but I think this is going to be a ball control offense, and I don't see any possibility that Hill is going to repeat some of the monstrous numbers that he's had in the past. He's obviously going to be a big part of the offense. They gave up the farm to get him. They're going to help stretch the field, keep on defenses honest. But I mean, not only do you have Hill to go with Waddle, they picked up Cedric Wilson, who had his best season ever, had a breakout season, to go with Gesicki and Preston Williams. And a lot of mouths to feed there. I love Hill. He is going to make this team better, but I don't know that I see him as a top 10 wide receiver in this run game, this running scheme that the Dolphins are going to feature.
Another thing I see about Hill and with Tua is Hill just seemed to get so many passes from Mahomes when Mahomes was creating. He was moving out of the pocket. He had that ability to get that pass off when he was going, running to his left and throwing right and doing all those things. I don't know that Tua has that same ability. His throwing motion is different. It takes longer for him to get the ball out. I just don't see that where Hill is going to get those catches. If he's going to get them, it's going to have to be much more timing patterns. And that hasn't really been Hill's forte over his years in Kansas City.
I hate to disagree, but I think if you look at the Alabama offense, you're going to see a different Tua, and I think you're going to see more of that Tua this year. And I'm not just saying that as a homer. I'm saying it as a guy who knows the Miami Dolphins picked up a new left tackle, a Pro Bowl left tackle.
Yes,
they picked up a new guard who is also could be a Pro Bowl guard. This is a different offense. They've got different. Nobody was afraid of Myles Gaskins. Nobody was afraid of Salvin Ahmed. Okay, people aren't going to be concerned about that. Now you throw in Chase Edmonds, Raheem Mostert. Hopefully he's healthy.
Sorry, Michelle.
I think if anything, they're going to lure everybody in this short crap. And that's when Hill is going to wake up and burn everybody downfield. That doesn't mean they're not going to use him in the short game. But I also don't disagree with Keith. I disagree with him in that I think he's top 10. I just don't think he is where he was,
right?
For the past few years where he was perennial first round or even early second round. I think Tyreek Hill is probably around a wide receiver 8. If I had to put a number on it right now, right below Davante Adams, but I don't see him falling outside of the top.
The real question that I think a lot of people have been pontificating with Hill is Mike McDaniels was a huge part of Deebo Samuel's success in the running game. Samuel's tore it up.
Raise your hand if you would have liked to have had Deebo Samuel on your fantasy team. I mean, everybody should be raising their hand right now, and you're going to, who knows if that's going to be his role, though, or it could be Waddle's role, or it could be a shared. They didn't have Brandon Ayuk really let everybody down in San Francisco. He couldn't take that pressure off. So
funny enough. Brandon Ayuk was another one of the trivia questions today as I was listening, and in weeks 9 through 16, I believe it was, he was like the number 19 receiver in the NFL for fantasy, which is pretty good.
That's not bad.
All right. I mean, it's pretty good for somebody that was probably available on waivers.
Right.
Okay. We spent a lot of time on Hill because he is at Miami and we're Miami guys, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I do want to move on. And Keith, I know we were talking about these trades. The biggest trade was probably Davante Adams, then Tyreek Hill. And I would say the third biggest trade for wide receivers was on draft night with A.J. Brown.
A.J. Brown.
Being traded to Philadelphia. What's your take on that? And where does he fall now with a different quarterback, a different system altogether? I mean, do you see him being better, worse, the same?
It's interesting. I think you're going to see a little bit of a regression. I mean, it's interesting because he's going from a heavy running offense with the Titans, but he was by far the target monster there. I mean, if you look at his 3 years there, I mean, in his first year, he had 84 targets and broke 1,000 yards with 8 touchdowns. Second year, 70 grabs, 106 targets, and 11 scores. And last year, in a shortened season for him because he had his injuries, still 105 targets, Didn't get 1,000 yards because of the injuries and 5 touchdowns. And this is with a pretty good Ryan Tannehill. Here's the issue. Tannehill, who doesn't throw a lot to begin with, last year put the ball up 531 times, only went for 3,700 yards. That's not a lot. He's going over to Jalen Hurts, who I actually, as an NFL quarterback, I like because he's such a dual threat. But Jalen Hurts, who, give him some credit, his QBR really wasn't bad. He had a QBR of 87, so he's not a bad quarterback. But his attempts were only 432, and he had less yards than Tannehill, only 3,100 yards and 16 total touchdowns. So what I think you're going to see is he's going from a non-volume situation where he shined because he did so much with what he did, and in a team that doesn't throw the ball a lot, he really was that only option there. He's going over to a team that runs the ball probably even more using the quarterback. I see volume being an issue. They really don't have – they keep drafting receivers. I do like Devontae Smith. Rager was a bust. And they have I do like the tight end. But long story short, I think you're going to see some regression with A.J. Brown. Again, not because of his skill set, not because he's regressing as a wide receiver. The system he's going into is a system they don't put the ball up that much. So, again, another receiver who's always been kind of top 10-ish, I see, once again, falling out of the top 10 based on where he's going.
So I have a question. A.J. Brown or Tyreek Hill on your fantasy team? Just quickly give me a name.
I would still go Tyreek Hill. I agree with you. I think Tua has an incredible season, and I think Hill is going to be a big part of it. Not the same numbers, but I would go Hill over Brown.
Okay, and Brad said A.J. Brown. I think our first dollar bet is in the books.
Wait. Where are you?
I'm going Tyreek Hill as well.
There we go.
So it'll be the two of us against Brad. And then the second question, we'll get back to you, Brad. Don't worry. We'll talk about this in a second. But Jalen Hurts or Tua? Tagovailoa. Fantasy
this year
point.
I'm going here's the question. Hold on a second. Because Hurts does so much. Are we talking strictly fantasy numbers?
Fantasy points.
Fantasy numbers.
Total fantasy points? He does so much on the ground. That's a tough one because I really
you know
like
what? Don't answer.
We'll do that quarterback night
for when we talk about quarterbacks.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay, but
that's great question.
That's just a little teaser. But for now, Brad, I think you're writing it down as our first dollar bet of the year.
So I'm not at home tonight in my studio.
I'm going to make a note.
I have a whiteboard. I have a whiteboard that I bought, and I will be keeping track on the whiteboard of all of our bets. So as soon as I get home, I will write this one down.
I'm going to do it here. I got it.
But here's my thought on A.J. Brown. I think he goes into the perfect system. Okay, yeah, they run the ball, but they have Devontae Smith there, and you have your kind of your slot guy.
I mean, things aren't,
right. No, I'm saying
and they have running backs who catch the ball.
Yeah, but he's gonna. A.J. Brown, I saw in Tennessee, was like a boom or bust guy. He'd have games like 1 catch for 8 yards or 15 catches, for 210 yards. And it seemed like that they just couldn't get him the ball.
So what's
enough,
the difference in
injured.
Philly and in Tennessee? What do you see different?
I think you're going to see in Philly, it's going to be more steady. It's going to be more like 6 to 10 a game, 80 to 130 yards a game, and touchdowns thrown in there.
I'm talking about ideologically or philosophically. What is different between Tennessee and Philadelphia as far as
I think you'll be able to see. Well, I'm telling you, I think you're going to be able to see Jalen Hurts not having to run as much now because he's going to have another target there.
I'm just saying, why is it going to be different for A.J. Brown in Philly as it was in Tennessee? What, is he going to get more? Is he going to get more targets? Is he going to get more targets that actually turn into receptions? What is going to be different between how he does in Tennessee and how he does in Philly? Or are you saying it's going to be about the same?
No, I think it's going to be more. I think it's going to be more consistent as long as he can stay healthy, of course.
Why?
Right? That's been an issue.
I mean,
with him.
they've got the tight end, which Tennessee didn't have. They've got a second receiver in Devontae Smith, or a first receiver that Tennessee didn't really have. Julio
and they
doesn't
throw the
count,
ball so much less.
And they were and teams were able to game plan against AJ Brown. Now they have other pieces in place, and
that's
Devontae
what I wanted to hear.
Smith isn't.
Like, why do you think that?
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to hear.
They have other pieces in place to make it where AJ Brown is going to have more availability to get the ball without forcing it to him because they have to. Right? In Tennessee, you saw these huge games because they had to come back, where then players got injured. And so they had to force it to him. And that's when he was having his big games. And other games, he just disappeared. So that's why I think they won't have to force it to him.
All right. So let's just keep going with this trades, right? So after AJ Brown, another big trade that happened, which is not like earth shattering because this is now the third team that this wide receiver has been on, but it's Amari Cooper to Cleveland. Before last year, he had Amari Cooper sneakily or stealthily put up 3 1,000-yard seasons. People don't necessarily believe that or see that because they still have those memories from what he was like with the Raiders. But things changed last year, and he only had 68 receptions for 865 yards. And if you watched Hard Knocks with the Dallas Cowboys, I was fooled. I was like, oh, my God, Amari looks so good. He looks so much better, the way he's cutting, the way, but the thing is, only once in his entire career did he have less than what he had last year. And it wasn't due to injury. So do you want to guess why? What was that about? Why did he have so much less? I mean, it's obvious, but do you guys know why he didn't do as well last year?
I would say CeeDee Lamb.
Exactly. CeeDee Lamb. He took over as Dallas's number one receiver.
Yep.
And with the emergence, like you talked about already, Keith, of Cedric Wilson toward the end of the year, Michael Gallup, and more important, Dalton Schultz, right? A guy that probably wasn't even drafted. All of a sudden, these were guys that were getting a lot of the balls. And, of course, Keith can insert his joke there. But these guys were getting a lot of the balls. But now he goes to Cleveland as their true number one receiver. I mean, you can say Donovan Peoples-Jones is, but he really goes there as a true number one receiver. They don't have CeeDee Lamb or Dalton Schultz or Michael Gallup. They don't even have Jarvis Landry anymore in Cleveland.
That's right.
They have Donovan Peoples-Jones and David Bell, whoever that is. So the biggest issue now is who will be throwing to him when Watson is suspended? How about Jacoby Brissett? That's who is on their depth chart. If they don't go with
go Jacoby.
And if that happens, you might as well just say goodbye to Amari Cooper as being fantasy relevant. However, keeping an eye on what happens with Watson, he's gone. Cooper's gone from a low-tier wide receiver one last year as far as drafting to being a high-tier wide receiver two, to this year being a low wide receiver two or a high-tier wide receiver 3. So I think he's dropped down a notch. But if Watson is there and he starts without being suspended, I have no problem with having Cooper as my second wide receiver.
Yeah, I agree with you. This is, again, it completely hinges on what happens with Watson. Let's just arguably say, the smoke clears and we know Watson is in. I have Cooper, honestly, just outside the top 10 because Watson is a kingmaker. What every year that he was there with Brandon Cooks absolutely shined. Watson can get the ball, and there's nobody to throw the ball there except DPJ and that kid Schwartz. They have a couple, their tight ends, Njoku and Hooper. And Watson will lock in on Cooper, and they will throw. And I could see Cooper easily going for 90, 100 grabs, 1,100, and 8, 9, 10 touchdowns. Again, 100% if Watson is there. Could be a guy that's just outside the top 10.
They are saying that by July sometime, mid-July or late July, if there's not some kind of decision on Watson, then likely it won't be until after the season.
Right.
So you should know by early August time whether Watson will be in or out. So a lot of drafts you'll be able to plan around
I'll
that.
tell you right now, if Watson is there, I think Cooper has a better year than Davante Adams. Having Deshaun Watson throw him the ball and really being by far the wide receiver.
That's kind of ballsy, but I mean, if Watson was in Houston, and would you pick Brandon Cooks over Davante Adams? I mean, are you hinging everything on Watson? Are you?
I think that I think Davante Adams in that offense where Darren Waller, and I know they gave him a huge contract, so they're gonna feature him, but they have Waller there quite a bit, and they love to run the ball. I just think that where Adams is gonna go, and Cooper being the only guy there, and I don't think it's going to be much more, but I think he's just going to just edge out Davante Adams with Watson.
Okay. So let's do this. Let's talk about another trade that happened on draft night, and that was, of course, Hollywood Brown. He ended up getting traded. Brad, do you want to tell us how you feel about Hollywood?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I mean, of course, he gets traded. Kyler Murray was pulling for him, right, because they were buddies from college. And in college, where was it? In college, Kyler Murray to Hollywood Brown, 27% share in the offense in college. That's a big number, right? We were talking about this before with, was it Davante Adams?
Davante.
Yeah. So 27%. So Kyler Murray was pulling for him. And now Kyler Murray, we don't even know if he'll be with Arizona. I mean, it looks like he will, but that could be, that's their buddies. In
he actually had a quarterback instead of a running back throwing to him.
Well, yeah, no, but look, in 2021, yeah, that's true. He had 146 targets last year, 91 catches for just over 1,000 yards, 6 TDs. Now, obviously that's not a great percentage of catches to targets, but that part of that is the quarterback throwing to him, right? The year before he had 100 targets. So he gets targeted. He's fast. We know he's fast. Obviously Christian Kirk goes to the Jaguars on a,
and we'll talk about that. Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. But Brown right now is being drafted around a 25 ADP. Wide receiver ADP, not overall.
Right.
But with 8, obviously you still have Green still in Arizona, and he's aging. He did what he could do last year. He's not going to be the guy. So I think he's got a really good opportunity there. They they have Connor there out of the backfield, and he's going to do what he does. He's not going to be amazing, but he's going to be good as long as he can stay healthy. And I think it is I think he could fall in around like the number 12 overall wide receiver by year's end.
I'm shocked that he is not just above Hopkins as far as ADP, but very much above, almost double.
Well, because of the suspension.
Right.
He's suspended for the first 6 games. So, you take that out of it, and so he's going to jump way up.
Right. You're still talking, though, about 11 games with somebody like DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, at his ADP, I'm not afraid to grab Hop at what do they have around 40 right now? I mean,
he did not have a great year last year.
He did not have a great year, and it wasn't even
he did not have a great year last year, but taking all of your arguments into consideration, especially the one about A.J. Brown, well, now there's somebody else that Kyler Murray can throw to. So I look, I'm just throwing that out there. Yeah. It should be interesting to see what happens in that. Anything else on Brown before we move on?
No, we can move on from Brown. It's just go.
No, it's fine. You mentioned Christian Kirk, and we've been talking trade after trade after trade. Kirk was actually one of the first free agent pickups this year, and he kind of set the bar for wide receivers and how much they were going to be making. And I think all of us, and all of the listeners included, were shocked at how much the Jaguars were willing to pay Christian Kirk. Now, Keith, I know
he must have one hell of an agent.
Yeah, right. And it's kind of funny. We're almost doing the chain gang because we're talking about Hollywood Brown goes to the Cardinals, out goes Christian Kirk. He goes to the Jaguars. Then in comes Christian Kirk for the Jaguars. Out goes DJ Chark. It's just kind of funny how it's all interconnected. So talking about Christian Kirk, DJ Chark, who I think is a tremendous talent.
Wait, do you want to talk about Chark or you want to talk about
No,
Kirk?
I'm so sorry. Christian Kirk, I apologize.
It's all right.
Christian Kirk. No. We'll go to Kirk. We were going back and forth. The chain gang got a little into my head. So Kirk, I mean, he had 103 targets last year. In the absence of Hopkins doing a ton, Christian Kirk came in and he actually had a very decent year. Nearly broke the 1,000 mark on yardage, 77 grabs, 103 targets with 5 touchdowns, which was by far his best year, picking up the slack where DJ Hopkins couldn't do it. This is a guy that I think of all the people we're talking to, just based on, the numbers that he's doing one year to the next, could see by far the biggest decline. There was all this hype about Trevor Lawrence coming in. Granted, it was his first year on a terrible team with quite possibly the worst college coaching experiment into the NFL that we have ever seen in the history of ever. And as a Gator fan, I don't
know if I'd call it coaching.
It was a shit show. But the problem is he's going, and you hope that the quarterbacks make that sophomore leap. I mean, we're going to need to see a big leap. I mean, Lawrence is, and we could talk about Kirk, but this is really more about Trevor Lawrence. I like to think about when Randy Moss went to the Raiders and he had Jamarcus Russell throwing him the ball. He was terrible and everyone thought he was done. The next year he goes to New England and gets 24 touchdowns in that historic season that the Patriots took together. The problem is the quarterback that Kirk has throwing to him last year had 3,600 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 17 interceptions. And that's dropping back a whopping 602 times. So as much as I like Kirk, and they did get rid of DJ Chark, but they still have Marvin Jones. They have Laviska Shenault there. They have Jamal Agnew. I would avoid at all costs, most likely, certainly as a wide receiver 1, 2, maybe a wide receiver 3 or 4, any receiver on this team until Trevor Lawrence can actually show that he's going to be able to put it together. It's a shame because Kirk just came off a career year for him, and I don't see him doing anything close to the numbers going into that. I mean, Marvin Jones actually did have good numbers, and I will say that. Lawrence did focus in on someone. I just don't see him being terribly fantasy relevant in that Jacksonville offense.
Yeah, I'm not going to So there was some news out of Jacksonville today. Travis Etienne was given the go ahead for full practice, full contact, full everything. So he is back for now, which that doesn't change necessarily Kirk's numbers or his value, but it was just some news. But as far as Kirk goes, you just can't trust him. I mean, obviously last year was a mess, and Lawrence, you almost forgot about him. He was just terrible. But we'll see what happens this year. But I can't see you taking an early draft pick on Kirk just because he was given a big contract. There, I mean, I'm waiting until the 6th or 7th round probably to even think about Kirk.
But yeah, I don't even think anybody's expecting Kirk to go anytime before the maybe 8th round. But I'm only going to say this for another 10 seconds, and then I'm done with Jacksonville. But I'm done with Christian Kirk. But the point is that defense still gives up a lot. It's still a mess, and they're going to be throwing a lot.
That's true.
And somebody's going to get the ball. So
I mean, Marvin Jones had 77 grabs, and he had 77 grabs and 832 yards, and 4 touchdowns. And Aunt Sexy, I mean, he was.
But things are only going to get better, the way I see it. So
right, exactly. Yeah.
All right. So the next one I want to talk about is the pride of the University of South Florida, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. He ends up going to Kansas City, but of course, let's be clear, he's not Tyreek Hill. Like I said, the NFL is not a plug and play. It would be easy if you could take one wide receiver and put him in the spot that another one was in, and they would be successful. It doesn't happen. And there are plenty of people who will tell you that Valdez-Scantling has ranked inside the top 5 in yards per reception over the past 2 seasons, and it's true. And then you couple that with Patrick Mahomes throwing to him. Is he supposed to be great? I mean, look, someone's going to have to get that 25% target share that went to Tyreek Hill, and and it's possible, not probable, but possible that MVS is going to be that guy. But keep in mind, they also got Juju, right? And Brad's going to tell us about Juju a little bit. And, of course, they've got the hot and cold Mecole Hardman. God knows what he'll do.
DeMarcus Robinson.
And is it possible that we see Travis Kelce's numbers actually go up? I mean, he's getting older, but someone has to get part of that market share that Tyreek Hill lost. MVS could be a late round sleeper pick. I'm not expecting him to go in the top 20, but he could be a sleeper pick. Don't expect him to be a wide receiver 1 or a wide receiver 2. But if you have a 3 wide receiver system, then I definitely would pick up someone like MVS. Or if you see that there are injuries with Juju or things aren't working out with him, then of course I would grab him. He just has to work on the drops.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to be talking about Juju, so I wanted to.
Well, go ahead. We can bring him up as part of this discussion as well.
So this could be the best fantasy value this year. That's how I'm looking at Juju. Juju's 25 years old. Juju is going from Roethlisberger, spaghetti arm, the past couple years, to Mahomes, the best arm the past few years. Tyreek Hill's out. They have Hardman, they have Pringle, they have all these guys. If they were in love with any of those guys, they wouldn't have been going after MVS. They wouldn't have been going after Juju, right? We know Juju can do it. He needs the volume. He needs that confidence. If there's a quarterback that can do it, it's Mahomes. We know this guy has the talent. We've seen him do it. Honestly, I think Juju is probably going to be looked at like a 3rd, 4th round guy. He could end up in the top 5, as far as I'm concerned, far as a wide receiver by the end of the year. He could have a huge year.
Yeah, it gets to fly out of my butt, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I want you all to remember who won the dollar last year about Jamar Chase. You go, no, he's terrible. No. What happened with Jamar Chase?
First of all, we never said he was terrible.
Yeah.
You guys poo-pooed him.
Just like you did Deebo Samuel.
Hey, listen, I had Waddle, and Waddle broke every rookie receiving record. Well, not every, but certainly Waddle had a good year as well with catches. But here's the deal with Juju. I mean, you're thinking 2018 Juju, which was a monster, right? He was the focus of the team. And I like Juju. I think he's great. The problem is they already have a Juju on that team, and it's Travis Kelce. They play the same. Juju is an over-the-middle possession-type receiver. He is not a stretch-the-field receiver. And that role is already taken by one.
He was early on.
When Antonio Brown was out that first year, and everyone expected Juju to be the replacement and do well, he failed. And he failed because it was a different system. He didn't have anybody to take that, But what I'm kind of agreeing with Brad, not in the top 5 thing, which I think is just ridiculous, but I do agree that there will be a lot of pressure taken off of him by the fact that they do have Kelce, of course, and they do have MVS. But you know what? Even when they had Chase Claypool and
Deontay Johnson.
It was still wasn't the Juju show. So I don't see it happening. If anything, if we're going to talk about any of the guys we talked about tonight, that would be a surprise entry into the top 5 would be Amari Cooper, just because of the system that he's going to be playing in if Deshaun Watson comes back. But I don't know. That's kind of bold. I'm not saying he wouldn't be a good sleeper.
I don't see it.
But
do you think? I mean, we know what Deshaun Watson can do. Is there going to be a ramp up with him because he hasn't played in a year, more than a year?
He's going to have
football?
to learn the system. He's going, I don't even know what the story is and how much he's practicing, if he can, and how much this is distracting him and everything else. But it's a brand new system he's going to have to learn. There's going to be some type of, it's not like Russell Wilson going to Denver, where I think he's going to be great from day one. I don't see that happening, even if
that's different.
Deshaun will be fine. He had a lot of massages in his time off. He'll be totally ready to go.
True. A lot of booty massages, giving and taking.
Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. So let's do this, guys. We don't have a lot of time left. I know Allen Robinson is somebody that people have drafted every year, and he's probably disappointed people every year. Are we going to have another disappointment with Allen Robinson this year?
No, we are not. Well, let me put it this way. Allen Robinson's stock can only rise after last year.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, and I'm not going to say people forget. There's a reason why. He was drafted within one of the top 12, 15 wide receivers last year, if not higher, because in 20, he did 1,250 yards, 102 grabs. Year before that, 1,147, 98 grabs, 7 and 6 touchdowns. He's a beast because he's Allen Robinson, and that's what he does. Last year, should I even say this? I might throw up on my mouth. He had 410 yards on 38 grabs with 66 targets because the quarterbacking situation was such an unbelievable shit show in Chicago. And now, it's crazy. He's going to arguably one of the better quarterbacks in the league. Stafford he's going to the Rams. We know this. The only problem, it's going to go up. There's no question his numbers are going to go up, but he is going into an embarrassment of riches of a wide receiver room. You got OBJ there. You got not arguably.
OBJ is not there.
Oh, excuse me, OBJ. Not, Robert Woods.
Robert Woods is not there.
Where did Robert Woods go?
Tennessee.
He went to Tennessee. Excuse me. So it's Cooper Kupp.
It's Cooper Kupp.
It's Cooper Kupp. You're right. You know something? That's a really good point, actually. I forgot Robert Woods went to Tennessee, and I know OBJ is a free agent. There's talk of him re-signing with the Rams.
Van Jefferson is really
Jefferson. That was
third.
the second guy. But something? With OBJ a question mark, might not be returning, and Robert Woods gone, that actually really does change the outlook on Robinson because, again, Stafford, almost 5,000 yards last year, 48-86, 41 touchdowns. Unbelievable quarterback ranking. We all know how good he is and what he did, and he loves to air the ball out. So Robinson's stock is really on the rise. I think people are going to be obvious of that because this is a team that loves to throw the ball, and that's Sean McVay offense. I don't know where I have him as an ADP because a lot of it hinges on if OBJ does come back. Not that he was a huge part of it anyway. It was the Cooper Kupp show. But I really do like Allen Robinson in this offense.
I don't know.
What'd you say, Seth?
Well, I think he's got the ability. We've seen that. I agree with Keith.
Yeah.
We've seen that he can do it. When you're thrown into that Bears offense, it's terrible. And I see a completely different person this year. And again, if we're going to talk about sleepers in the top 5, I think it's possible, not probable, that Allen Robinson could be there. But I'm fine taking Robinson as a low tier wide receiver 2 this year.
Yeah, and that's about where he should fall.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest issue with him jumping up into that top 5 is Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp, even if he goes down 20% in catches, he'll still have 100 catches.
Right.
Yeah. So,
that's crazy.
Stafford is a kingmaker. He really is.
Yeah. And well, it's not just Stafford, it's that offense.
Yep.
Right. It's how the offense is set up, and they throw the ball and so I like him, but mid to low end wide receiver 2 with an upside. Now I took him the year before after he had that big year, and it was so I don't even know if I can draft him. He's it's one of those guys that gets in your head that if you had him during that complete flop, what do? It's hard.
All right, guys. that'll do our. That's the end of our show for tonight. There were a few other people.
Something happening at 8:30.
There were a few other people like Jarvis Landry, Sammy Watkins that we could have talked about, DJ Chark,
Robert Woods.
So we're gonna, we'll address that later on in the summer. Next week we're gonna talk about QB moves. There were some major QBs that went to different places. We're going to talk about the ones that might be fantasy relevant, as well as a lot of the rookies, people who were drafted, undrafted free agents who came in, are who's going to be fantasy relevant, who's going to make a difference this coming year. That's what we're going to talk about next week. The Miami Heat are playing in about 10 seconds.
Let's go Heat.
So I'm geared up for that. Guys, any final words?
Nope. Next week, Monday is a holiday, so maybe we'll look for Tuesday night instead of Monday night. And glad to be back, and we'll see everyone soon.
Right, keep signing into the buzz. We love doing this, guys.